Welcome back to education. I hope you had a nice little break there. We now have Renee Noble, and Renee Noble is many things. She spends all of her time doing education-y stuff and community building stuff and also working at Microsoft. And I think she has found the trick that finds more than 24 hours in a day, because that's the only possible way she can do all of those things. So she, as a Microsoft Cloud advocate, she spends her time teaching the community through global events, live streams and community workshops, and then is also the national director of the Girls Programming Network, which she's been working on and I've been a part of for 9 years. We've known each other a while now. And that moulds not only high school aged girls across Australia now, but also the tutors that tutor those girls get moulded by it as well. And there's a whole network and community thing going on there. And she's also teaching at PLC Sydney and has her own startup. I mean, honestly. So we are going to learn from Renee today, and she's going to be talking about get yourself a leg up for student projects.
Thank you. Thanks, Amanda. I know I'm my MC's worst nightmare when it comes to introductions. What does this lady even do? But yes, I am going to help you get yourself a leg up with your student projects. And as a teacher, educator, or just maybe yourself, maybe you'll pick something up you just want to use in your own time. I am Renee Noble. I'm a cloud advocate. Feel free to reach out to me. My web addresses, my website's on most of these slides as well, and there's just like a contact me thing at the bottom. Or hit me up on the Twitter, and I just signed up for Mastodon, so it's the same handle now. But I am Renee, and I do many things. I have many jobs, and they all I'll do basically anything if it's some combination of tech, education, and community, and that's how I've managed to have several jobs, and I live and eat even based off those things that are fun to do, and I love doing them. My main kind of job that I'm doing, and what I'm going to talk to you a lot about today, is my stuff I do at Microsoft. I am a cloud advocate. Cloud advocate just sounds like a made-up name, but that's what I am. I advocate for the cloud and things that live on the cloud, and you putting stuff on the cloud, and the cloud making things good for you. And I get to tell cool people how to do cool things with cool tech, so I'm going to do that now. That's the plan. But yes, as Amanda said, I do many other things. You've already heard a bit about Connected Code from Jack today. It's good. I like doing it. We help the kids. Then we've got GPN and our new charity, Tech Inclusion, where we are supporting girls, women, and gender minorities to access tech education and go through that whole full pipeline to becoming tech awesome people with success and support and happy communities along the way, and also do a little bit of teaching at PLC as well. So you can see I am all about tech, education, and community. And yeah, so today I've got some tech to teach you for teaching your community, and hopefully it's going to be useful. So today in my session, I'm going to cover a few different areas. First, we're going to talk about Git, friend or foe. Then we're going to go shopping with Git. I've got a great analogy, which I love. I'm going to share, so that hopefully it's going to help you in your teaching endeavors with Git. And then I'm going to talk about some GitHub tools for creating better projects that I've been trying out. And I'm going to cover a lot of pieces of technology today, which, yeah, they kind of all just piled in. I was like, oh, God, there's a lot of stuff in here, and that looks a bit scary. But I do promise they're all going to come together, and it's going to make sense, and it's going to work. So don't be scared by the long list of stuff that we've got going on here. But first, let's talk about Git, friend or foe, because Git it's an interesting thing. It's very useful, but it's also sometimes intimidating. So firstly, can I get a raise of hands? Who uses Git or GitHub currently? Yay! Lots of people use it. So I've got a friendly audience, maybe we'll find out in the next questions. Did you find it tricky to start learning Git at the start? Yeah, a lot of people on that one. For the people who are educators in the room, do you want to teach your students Git? Not a lot of people. Some kind of hand waving like, yes, it might be useful, but I'm very concerned about how that's going to go. That goes to my next question. Do you think it's going to be hard to teach your students Git? Yes, there's hands up again. Yeah, so this is a kind of why I'm here to talk a bit about Git today. I love talking about Git because I'm going to tell you my own story first and why I really am passionate about helping other people understand Git now. Because when I was getting started with coding at university, I hadn't learned any coding while I was in high school, and I accidentally came across some people who decided at 11 o'clock at one night, living in college, that it would be really fun to teach Renee how to code. And that's how I ended up in coding. But at some point in your coding journey, you will need to do some sort of version control. Like when you're doing your honours thesis and you don't want it to die and go into, if your computer breaks, which mine did, you don't want that to lose all of your code, which would be really a problem. So luckily, I had learned some Git at that point. But on my Git learning journey, I was kind of just working by myself. I write some code, do some commits, whatnot. But sometimes it would get into a bit of a messy state, as Git can do. And the problem was, I didn't have a great way to go about learning it. I had a lot of great people around me who wanted to help me, but they didn't necessarily go and teach me how to solve problems myself. So I'm going to talk about a specific thing, merge conflicts, which can seem scary at the start. And I'd be writing stuff and I'd want to put something back together, merge something, or I'd write something and it got out of sync with something else. So I need to resolve a merge conflict. And whenever that happened, I'd have people around me I'd be like, I don't know how to do this. I've got myself stuck in a state. And they're like, oh, don't worry, Renee. I will code that for you. I will fix it. It'll all be okay. And I'm like, okay, cool, that's good. I'm glad it's fixed now, because otherwise my work and my honours thesis and things, it's all going to fall apart. But that really taught me that I was not capable of dealing with a merge conflict. So for years, several years, I was using Git, but I was like, I can't do a merge conflict, because that's just a really ultra level move to be able to resolve a merge conflict, which is not true, because I was teaching at a computer summer camp, which many of you in the audience I've taught alongside with there, and the students are using Git at this point, and then of course, when you have 14 students working on the one project, you do encounter a merge conflict at some point. And then I go, oh no, there's a merge conflict. It's so ultra level. Someone really important is going to need to come along and fix this. And then I'm just like, oh, Emma, do you know anyone who can fix this merge conflict? And she's like, oh, we'll just do that now. And I'm like, what? We just do it? And then she's like, yeah, let me teach you. And then she's like, okay, cool. So just open this and that, and just choose which part you want. And then it's done. I was like, are you serious? People have been rescuing me, the damsel in distress, from merge conflicts for 4 years because they're so difficult. So from then on, I was like, you know what? Actually, Git is not as hard as people maybe make it out to be, because when people do resolve something that's a bit tricky, they do want to seem like a superstar. But I think we need to, make ourselves all feel like we do have the potential to be a Git superstar, or just a mini star, because sometimes it's actually not such a big deal. Sometimes Git can be a bit more tricky, but it doesn't start with merge conflicts. So that's why I do a lot of work helping people learn about Git, because it's a really important concept that's going to be really useful for a lot of people and save a lot of stress along the way. So let's take it from the top for anyone who is less familiar with Git. I'll take it right from the top with version control. Version control is a way of managing our files and code, or not even code, just data. We don't want it to look like this. So, has anyone ever had this happen on their computer? Yeah. So yeah, I did both chemical engineering and computer science at university, and this is what the chemical engineering group projects always look like by the end. It's just like, yeah, which one was it? Was it project final or project final all caps that we were supposed to submit? I don't even remember now. And this is when you need a version control, because yeah, it's going to stop this happening. It's going to be a way to build on top of the work you're doing as a team, and a lot of version control tools also have ways to back things up online and neat things like that. So that's version control. That's the concept that we're going to work with. Then we're going to talk about Git, which is an implementation of version control. There's different kinds of version control. This one's the most common, and it has things like branches, which are really useful if you especially have multiple people working together, and then you can learn how to merge them yourself and not have a panic attack about that, because it's actually fine. And there's lots of integrations for Git where you can use it to deploy code or things like that, and lots of platforms that support Git. like GitHub, which we're going to talk about in a second. But this is actually how Git works behind the scenes. It's basically just keeping track of what's changed. So I have a file, I've added some lines, I've got rid of some lines, I've changed some lines. I'm just going to keep note of what has gone on there. And from where you start off, just by adding, subtracting, putting the different changes in there, you can actually just rebuild what the code looks like now. So we don't have to store the file over and over and over again, like when I had Project Superfinal and several other versions of that. It's just eating up room on my computer. This is a much more succinct way of storing changes to what you have created. So we can do that with GitHub, which uses Git as the implementation, and it's a platform for putting your code up online, firstly, as a nice, safe way to keep it up there and keep that history of changes that you've made, the diffs, as we call it, and then you can use those on multiple computers. You have lots of people collaborating together, sharing files and projects. It gives you tools to work with others, like commenting on each other's code and doing pull requests and better ways to manage changes. And tools that look at your code, for instance, making sure you haven't committed your secret keys to the public repo, things like that. That's good. And it also has ways of integrating with other platforms. So, hey, we want to deploy this web server. Oh, will you simply just give me your Git URL and I can do that and help you do that. It's great. So that's what GitHub is for, Git as a concept for us. But we do need to learn a few concepts to be able to use Git and GitHub. And yeah, this is my favorite analogy for helping people understand Git. I've used this with lots of different people, from high school students to my interns that were working under me. And my screen has gone away. Wait, it's going to come back. Okay, cool. So we're going to talk about just the basics of Git. We're going to add, commit, and push, but this shopping analogy does extend to more. You can talk about merges, you can talk about rebasing, you can talk about all kinds of things. You can watch my other videos, which I'll give you links to at the end of it, because I really do like to talk about Git with this analogy. But let's get started on how Git is like a shopping trip. So firstly, we've got coding. We're going shopping. We're putting things in our shopping trolley. Then we're going to be going to the checkout, putting them on the conveyor belt. Then we're going to commit to the purchase, and we're going to get this neat receipt here that's going to tell us of what's happened. And then at the end, when you want everyone to know about the really great things that you've bought, you're going to take a photo of your brand new outfit and you're going to put it on Instagram and put it out to the world so other people can see. So let's break that down just a little bit. So firstly, we're browsing, we're in the shops, we're putting things in our trolley, but we might also be like, nah, I don't actually need these 7 boxes of chocolate. I'm going to put them back on the shelf. Maybe another day I'll come back for that. And yeah, you have the opportunity to just put things in and out while you're going around the shop, and no one's keeping track of all of that. So this is really your coding and saving, because you still want to save your code as you go along, but you can just undo anything as you go along, and nothing's recorded in the Git history, in the Git log yet. So once we are happy with what's in our trolley, we might head over to the register, and we can put some or all of our items onto the register, and then we can start, moving towards our payment system. So we might just put a couple of things on here. If you run a business, or you have work expenses and a corporate card, maybe sometimes you're buying something for yourself and something for the business. So maybe you'll leave some stuff in your trolley for a separate purchase, just so you have a separate receipt, and you put a couple of things on the register, on the conveyor belt now to do your first one. So let's go on with that transaction. So this part here has been all about adding things. So that's your git add step. And yeah, it's a really great way to be like, yeah, kids go shopping. They put things on the conveyor belt, and it's like, yeah, no, I am saying this is what I want to buy. Next up, we are committing to the purchase, which is like our commit step. And you get this handy dandy receipt, which has a list of the changes you have made to your life, like buying these fantastic pink shoes and this blue t-shirt. And the great thing is, you could also undo this if you're like, actually, pink is really not my color. I just shouldn't have bought these. I want to send them back. That's like, let's undo these. And that's kind of why just this our commit history is exactly like a receipt. It shows what we've done and what we can undo as well. So this is our committing step, and yeah, it just keeps track of all of everything that's gone on there. Finally, once we're like, cool, this has gone pretty well, I've got some neat items here. I want to tell the world about them. We're going to post a selfie on Instagram probably, which is really cool. But this is where it can get a little bit more tricky. If you were, for instance, had a lot of followers and you weren't actually really sure about the things you had bought, like pink shoes, I don't know, maybe not. You posted on Instagram and then everyone's like, oh, this is the best outfit already ever. I want to go get one for myself. Maybe your best friends are all going to go buy pink shoes that match now. And then you go, oh, actually, I've just returned them. Maybe I should take that post down. I don't know. But it's out there in the world. And once something's out there in the world, things can go a little bit awry if you're working with other people. And that's the same in terms of Git. Because if you're working with multiple contributors, someone else might pull down your changes that you've made to the repo and say, oh, this is great code, I'm going to start building on top of it. So that is how we end up with our Instagram-worthy shopping trip. But you do want to, consider what you're putting out there into the internet, whether you're online or whether you are pushing to the main branch of your repo. And this is why branches in Git are really, really helpful as well, because you don't have to put it out for everyone to see. Maybe it's more like a Slack channel or something, whereas it's just a niche group of friends who'll understand that maybe you don't want those pink shoes, rather than putting it out to everyone in the world. So, we now know about Git and how to go shopping with Git. What else can we do now that we know all about this? Well, I do a lot of streams on Git, but I also do a lot of streams that rely on Git and putting my code on GitHub so people can have it at the end of the streams, or giving them a little template so they can code along. And one of my favorite streams I've done, actually with our lovely host Amanda, is about creating a resume or a portfolio website where we gave them this portfolio and they could code along and make it their own. So that was super great, and we had all these people forking the repo, which is really cool because a lot of people come to my streams and they don't do absolutely anything, I think. I don't know, I can just see the number of streams going up and how many people are online, but I don't know if they've done anything. But here we had 31 people forking this repo, which was like 31 people actually did something. That's really cool. I'll talk a little bit more about what this actually involved. This is, we gave them the repo, and then through the episode, we showed them how to write some HTML and some CSS, and then by the end of it, they could add, some cool JavaScript to make it a bit funky and make themselves really stand out. So that's what we had in our episode. And that was really loved by the people watching the streams. It was one of my most watched streams, which was really cool. I was like, oh, doing these template things is really handy. And then I was teaching year 10 last year, and I had a little bit of a cold, and in this COVID-y times, you absolutely can't go to school when you have a bit of a cold. So I was like, what am I going to get my students to do? Because they're not going to have someone filling in who's going to understand the lessons I had prepared. I know. They could use a resume or a portfolio. I'll just give them a link to this stream and they can do it themselves because there's a template and they can just follow along with that. So maybe they'll love it just as much as the stream viewers did. But it was met with some confusion. So look, I obviously wasn't there to tell them how Git is just like going shopping, and they had never made a GitHub account before and things like that. So that was a little bit confusing, but I think there were also just some little wins that I could have used to make this a bit better. Because as I said, we'd used a template that I put up as a GitHub repo, but I hadn't actually used a GitHub template because I didn't know that they existed at the time. But shortly after that, I found out they exist, and there's a few other tools that have been released since that will make this even better, and just something that I'm like, actually, this could be really cool to use in the classroom. So yes, as I said, I just had a regular repo. If I'd only just gone in and clicked this button, Git repository, template repository, I just ticked that, and now it's become a template. And this would have actually been really good for the stream as well, because I wanted to be able to fork my own template because I did a morning and an afternoon stream. So we had other people from around the world watching, but I couldn't fork my own repo, so I had to log in as different people to make more templates to show everybody, which was really annoying. It was like, oh no, who did I log in as this morning? Or what did I use last time for the morning and the afternoon? But with the templates, you can actually use your own template to create a new repository, which is really handy. And also for students, it kind of gets rid of some of the scary looking stuff. For instance, when you create a repo from a template, it gets rid of that long commit history, because you don't want your students seeing all of this stuff, because that's scary looking. They just want to be like, oh yeah, I have a folder and it gave me the starting code, and that's really cool. So you get rid of that. And also you won't have things being like, oh, upstream has some changes, do you want to pull them? Because your students don't want to do that. Don't get your year 9s to pull the upstream changes, I don't think. Look, maybe, but if you feel like I really missed out on something, I need you to all pull that. But let's try and avoid that if we can. So you get rid of those scarier looking parts and make it just a little bit simpler. But I think there's some technology that we can use to make it even better. So I'm going to tell you how we can make something using GitHub, GitHub templates, code spaces, Copilot, and GitHub Actions. The Copilot, GitHub Copilot, it's just for us, because why do I want to write all the test cases myself when I can get GitHub Copilot to do it now? So let's give it a go. So we're going to be making a Flask app. The idea is, the theme is that it would be a flashcard Flask app, for instance. So let's speed run. So I've actually got the whole process to show you exactly what it would be like to set this up for your students, set up their templates, set up some tests for some back-end testing, and then actually have the students do it. So let's speed run and see exactly what that would all look like. So let's kick it off. This is me setting up the template. I'm going to make it public so all my students can see. I can actually just go in here and write all of my assignment details if I wanted it all right here in the one place, which is really handy. So I'm just going to commit those changes. I could also add any other files here on the main page as well, but I think I've added in just the requirements.txt just to show you that you can put files in here if you wanted to upload some photos or something for your Markdown to write your assignment description. But here we're going to actually set up a code space. Code spaces are like an online dev box thing that you can code in and actually run Python, because with all our web development stuff, you can run VS Code in the browser, but it won't actually run your code. But here we go, we can actually install Python in this dev box thing. We've just used the default dev box, which makes it really easy to set up. And we're installing Python, and I'm also installing Copilot while I'm in there. Copilot is free for teachers and educators who are verified, as well as some open source contributors, so get some free stuff for yourself. Okay, now with Copilot, I'm just going to go and quickly set up a Flask app. I don't want to have to remember all this Flasky syntax, so thanks Copilot for doing that. You might also be like, I don't want some of this stuff. It's not what I want to include in a project for students, because that's a little bit above the level. But anyway, we've got it all set up. Or you might want to include some extra stuff that makes it easy for your students to run, like this debug and reloader and things like that. So here we go. We've got a working Flask app up there, but we're going to need some templates as well. So quickly go to set up our index.html file. Thanks, Copilot. I don't want to have to write all of that code myself to set up all the HTML. I'll just make some changes to make it look vaguely like the assignment I want the children to do. And great, that's looking good. Probably want some CSS. I always forget CSS styling as well. That's the one I forget the most. So let's get some color on there just so it looks, just so it's actually already hooked up. We'll add the link in there, something I always have to look up as well. Adding all that HTML. I keep losing my screen, which is not ideal, but that is, luckily that video is over. Maybe, no, it's not. There we go. Let's take it back just a hot second. It's cool. So we're now adding that link, and we've also set up some CSS. I think it's just nice to give the CSS already linked, so you know that it's already working. So I've made all the text green, just so we know that the CSS is alive and well, or green at least. And from that, we can go to our server.py file and just hit run and open our website in the browser. So we're doing now all of this in the browser, because when I was working, if I wanted to do a stream previously that involved Python, I couldn't just use the VS Code in the browser. I had to jump back into VS Code native on my desktop. So this is much easier to follow along with, and it's got all your tools built right in there. Yeah, so let's update the About page now that we've seen that that is already working for our index page. Just a little bit of styling as well so it can look really fun, and put in some more CSS, and then any second now we'll see our beautiful website in action, ready for students to give it a go. Oh yeah, and we're adding, just so we could actually show the students a demo of how it looks to insert data in terms of variables into a template. A Flask template. We're just putting this activity, randomly chosen learning-based activity in here as well. So there we go. We've now got a working Flask app. And it's ready to hand over to our students. Well, firstly, we might actually want to consider adding a little bit more, because maybe we want to have some Python-y stuff as well that we could do with some testing, because with this, making a website is cool and all, but it can be hard to test the outcomes that you're looking for unless you have some more specific outcomes that you need them to code towards. So I'm going to get them to set up a helper file function with some function stubs that I'm going to give them that they're going to need to fill out. They're just going to be like randomy kind of things that maybe you would need to help in your website, but they're kind of more just for a demo. So here we go. Let's create our helper functions.py file. And then once again, I don't actually use PyTest. I thought it would be interesting in a second. I'm setting up my PyTest here to test the functions that I've just written, which are about getting random names and colors and different numbers of colors and things like that. But I thought I'd give PyTest a go and see what it is like, and see how much Copilot can help me write some PyTest, which will be here now that the screen's back on. So thanks, Copilot, for writing that while the screen was off, but that's okay. It just has helped us write all that stuff and really helped fill out all those different test cases and include some tests that maybe I wouldn't think of off the top of my head, or like, oh, I should be doing type checking for that. So with this, we can now run the tests. We can actually set up using the Flasky looking icon on the side to say, yes, please configure the PyTest options for us, and then we can actually just run it really easily and see how it goes in the browser. Do remember to name your test cases with starting with test. So test, PyTest, or test, helper functions, or whatever. I've run the tests. I've failed them because I didn't do any type checking. And I'm like, actually, I don't want any type checking. Copilot, let's get rid of that. It's not really appropriate for year 8. Maybe that's who you're writing this for. So let's run it again and be happy with it. And then we can commit it. And the next thing we're going to do is have this be something that automatically runs whenever your students commit their code, which is really good because you can see the progress that they've been making as they go along. So yes, before I commit though, I am going to remove all the answers. Do not give the students the answers, because then they'll just copy those and then they'll pass all of your tests. So here we go. It's really easy to set up the GitHub actions to configure the PyTest to run. You actually just hit this button and then the demo, like not the demo, but the default stuff that it gives you is the stuff that will run the tests. So that's all we need. Cool, so now we've got that in place and we've clicked that button that makes it a template. So we can have our students go through and build on that template. So let's give that a look. So cool, we're in our project and like, oh good, we've got this project. We better start making new code space. The code space that we've set up already has all the requirements and stuff that's built into it. If you do want something more, don't forget to make it a private account as well. But yeah, if you want something more technically involved, you can not use the default one or build it on top of that one to give more specifications. You can get your code contributors added in, or you as a teacher, so you can actually see what they've coded. That's pretty important, so you'll need to show them how to do that. And here we go, quickly we're setting up code spaces, and we're going to jump in, and we'll be able to quickly go through and make some edits to all that code, adding the names of our people in the team. So, right. Then we can see, yep, it's looking pretty good. We can run the code. They better install Python as well. And then, yeah, that's all. It's all happening. Now we just want to commit it and run the tests and see how that all goes. So we've seen that. Let's jump ahead a little bit. And we've committed the code the first time. but we can see this hasn't passed the test yet. So we're going to go and we're going to actually write all of that code, fill in all those to-dos, and then we can run the code one more time once we've committed it, and we will see that it will go green. So that's what we want. So it's as easy as that to get students seeing their code and having some testing involved in the code as well. So what have we learned today? We've learned that GitHub and Git are friends to you and to your students. Think about not losing those major works accidentally, or being able to see what your students have contributed to different projects, as we were hearing with questions to Ali, like how do we know if they've actually done any work? Well, you could actually see who's committed what parts of the group project, so that'd be really handy. We've also seen how Git is just like a shopping trip, and Instagram, Instagram-worthy shopping trips, and we know the children love Instagram, so you can use that analogy. And we've also seen that you can get yourself and your students a leg up by creating a project just shaped like this. So yeah, I hope that's given you something to take away. Here's a link to some stuff that you can have for free. I've got a Cloud Skills Challenge if you want to learn more about Git and Copilot and code spaces and GitHub Actions and stuff, so that you can just learn lots of free stuff on Microsoft Learn. So go get all the free stuff. If you're an educator, an open source contributor to a major repo, go and get that free stuff too. And then, yeah, for your students, get them signed up to Imagine Cup, where they can be part of a competition to win $100,000 US, which is even more money. Or Imagine Cup Junior for anyone under 16. And for university students, Microsoft Student Ambassadors, because then they can get good stuff for their resume. So that's all I've got for you today, and I'm all out of time.
Thank you, Renee.
Thank you.
Here is your... How many is that now that you've got of Python mugs?
I think this is 5 mugs.
5. Yes, 5.
Thank
Congratulations. Thank you very much. Ladies and gents, if you've got questions, pop them onto the Discord channel, and we'll do our best to answer those ones. I should let you go for lunch, really. You haven't been naughty. Back at 1:45, 1:50, please, and we'll see you then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.